They say literature is the mirror of history, and the attempted military coup will be reflected in Turkish poetry, stories, and novels for many years to come. So what has politically heavy Turkish literature already produced about the night, and what can we expect in the future? Elif Bereketli talks to the experts to find out.
Turkish literature. A long tradition that's always up to date. Last year, nearly 670 million books were published in Turkey. That's nearly 8.5 books per person. Politics play a big role in most of contemporary Turkish literature, which is arguably what makes it interesting for a lot of Western readers trying to understand a complicated country through fiction. So, what about the failed coup attempt? Has it yet been reflected in Turkish literature? Or is 1 year on a bit too early to tell? There is someone who can help me find some answers.
For an important social event to reflect on literature, time is needed. It hasn't reflected on novels yet, but it's perfectly normal. A novelist needs at least 3 to 4 years to produce a serious piece. I haven't seen many short stories as well. But incidents like these influence emotions right away. That's why it already reflected on poetry and essays. Real reflection needs 4 to 5 years, but for now we should look into poetry.
Many poems have been written over the course of the year, some documenting the night, some expressing anger, excitement and sadness. Not only poets, but also scriptwriters were inspired by the tragic night. Iskender Pala is a poetry professor and author of several bestseller novels. Much of his writing reflects Turkey's long history of military interventions and coups, some of it based on personal experience. Now he's come up with a new theatre play on the 15th of July coup attempt, and I'm visiting his office to ask him about it. He says he wants to keep the memory of the night alive.
Benim 15 Temmuz'dan sonra
I wanted to keep record of the ensuing days, when the memory of the night was still hot, when we were still hearing the screams. People were angry, excited, furious. I used previous famous coup attempts from history, trying to show the links between them, terrorism, and what we went through in July the 15th. Military interventions promise freedom whilst limiting them. It's such a contrast. Art cannot take root in such a state, but in countries like us, post-coup processes never presented good grounds for artists to work.
Novelist and critic Selim İleri has been a major figure in Turkish literature for decades. He doesn't think literature in Turkey has shied away from times of conflict and controversy like the coups.
We've had a lot of military coups. It's always traumatic, stormy, atrocious for the writers. The outer world takes over the inner world. However, these hard times also have a pushing power on the artist. Literature likes challenging and fighting against the felonies. We can never know when we can see the results. For example, when the 1960 coup happened, I was a young boy. But years later, my memories from those days appeared in my writing. It was a dark, cacophonious time. It reflected a lot on Turkish literature. However, the 1980 coup was less visible in literature. There was an unbelievable amount of violence back then. As for July the 15th, I strongly believe that the 2016 failed coup attempt will reflect on every corner of Turkish literature.
Emotional poems, passionate essays. It seems like Turkish literature has already responded to the 15th of July coup attempt, but will it reflect on novels and other longer forms? We'll only be able to know over the next few years as the productions begin to be released. Elif Bereketli, TRT World, Istanbul.